Every day, intelligent people make decisions they later regret. They trust the wrong person. They ignore warning signs. They agree to things they never intended to accept. And the most disturbing part? Many of them don't realize they were manipulated until much later. But why? We like to believe manipulation only happens to certain people. People who are careless. People who are inexperienced. People who are not smart enough to see what's happening. But psychology reveals something far more uncomfortable. Manipulation does not succeed because someone is unintelligent. It often succeeds because it targets the very qualities that make us human. Our ability to trust, our desire to help, our need for connection, our willingness to believe people we care about. Imagine a coworker asking you for a small favor. Nothing serious, nothing unusual. You agree. A few days later, they ask for something slightly bigger. Then another request appears. Each one feels reasonable on its own. But months later, you realize you are carrying responsibilities that were never yours. And somehow, saying no feels harder than it should. Or imagine meeting someone who seems perfect. They understand you. They support you. They make you feel valued in a way you have never experienced before. But slowly, things begin to change. They question your memories. They make you doubt your judgment. They convince you that maybe you are the problem. These situations seem different, but underneath, they share the same foundation: the human mind. Before going deeper, we need to clear up an important misunderstanding. The term dark psychology sounds like a scientific field. It is not. There is no recognized branch of psychology called dark psychology. Instead, what people describe as dark psychology is better understood through established fields like social psychology, cognitive psychology, behavioral science, neuroscience, personality psychology, and communication research. These fields study something much more fascinating: how normal human psychology can sometimes be exploited. Because manipulation is not magic. It is not mind control. It is the use of ordinary psychological processes in ways that benefit one person while harming another. And that creates a fascinating question. If manipulation is not a mysterious power, why does it work even on intelligent, educated, emotionally aware people? The answer begins with something we rarely question. Why was the human brain designed to trust? Human beings survived because they cooperated. For thousands of years, survival depended on working together, finding food, protecting communities, sharing knowledge, raising children. Trust was not a weakness. Trust was an advantage. Without trust, civilization would not exist. Every day, you trust people you barely know. You trust drivers to follow traffic rules. You trust doctors to provide accurate information. You trust businesses to deliver what they promise. Most of the time, this system works. But there is a hidden trade-off. A brain designed for cooperation must also accept uncertainty. If you questioned every person, every message, and every interaction, daily life would become impossible. So the brain develops shortcuts. Psychologists call these shortcuts cognitive biases. They allow us to make decisions quickly without analyzing every detail from the beginning. Most of the time, these shortcuts are incredibly useful. They help us navigate a complicated world, but the same shortcuts that save mental energy can also create opportunities for manipulation. One example is our natural tendency to trust people who feel familiar, someone who shares our interests, someone who speaks like us, someone who seems to understand our experiences. This instinct helps humans build friendships, communities, and relationships. But it also creates a weakness. A manipulator may not need to force trust. Sometimes, they only need to create the feeling of familiarity. And trust is only one piece of the puzzle. Because the human mind does not make decisions through logic alone. It also responds to emotion. Many people imagine that their decisions come from careful reasoning. But psychology shows something more complicated. Before you consciously analyze a situation, your brain is already asking, is this safe? Is this dangerous? Is this rewarding? The brain is constantly evaluating the world around you. The amygdala plays an important role in processing emotionally significant information, especially threats and rewards. The prefrontal cortex helps with planning, reasoning, and self-control. Normally, these systems work together. But when emotions become intense, decision-making can change. Fear, excitement, guilt, love, urgency. Strong emotions can narrow attention and make immediate reactions feel more appealing. This is why manipulation often creates emotional pressure. Decide now. Don't tell anyone. If you really cared about me, you would do this. The goal is not always to present a stronger argument. Sometimes the goal is to reduce the time you have to think. And this leads to one of the most powerful patterns in manipulation: small steps. Most manipulation does not begin with a huge demand. It starts with something easy: a small favor, a small compromise, a small exception. Then the next step feels easier, because the previous one has already been accepted. Psychologists have studied this through ideas like the foot-in-the-door effect, where agreeing to a smaller request can sometimes increase willingness to agree to a larger request later. This does not mean people lose control of their choices. It means our natural desire for consistency can influence our behavior. And that tendency is usually helpful. Consistency helps us keep promises. It helps us maintain relationships. It helps us follow through on goals. But under the wrong conditions, it can be used against us. Another powerful influence is social proof. When people are uncertain, they often look at what others are doing. If everyone appears convinced, our brains often assume there must be a reason. Usually, this helps us learn from others. But it can also be exploited through fake reviews, artificial popularity, and misinformation. The problem is not that humans are irrational. The problem is that psychological systems designed for a social world can be manipulated in a modern world filled with information overload. But manipulation becomes even more complicated when we look at personality and relationships. When people hear the word manipulator, many imagine a psychopath. But science shows a more complex picture. Researchers study personality traits associated with exploitative behavior, including what is known as the dark triad: Machiavellianism, narcissism, psychopathy. These traits are associated with a greater likelihood of manipulative or harmful interpersonal behavior. However, an important warning: not every manipulative person has these traits, and not everyone with these traits behaves the same way. Human behavior is shaped by personality, environment, relationships, and circumstances. Another commonly discussed form of manipulation is gaslighting, but the word is often used incorrectly. Gaslighting does not mean every disagreement. It does not mean someone simply remembers an event differently. It refers to a repeated pattern where someone causes another person to question their own memory, perception, or judgment. Statements like, "That never happened," "You're imagining things," "You're too sensitive." When this happens repeatedly in an important relationship, a person may begin depending more on the other person's version of reality. This can happen partly because human memory is not a perfect recording. Memory is reconstructive. Each time we remember something, the brain rebuilds that memory. Usually, this flexibility helps us learn and adapt. But under certain conditions, memory can be influenced by suggestion and pressure. And this reveals something important. Manipulation does not require someone to be weak. It works because human psychology is complex. So if manipulation uses normal human psychology, how do we protect ourselves? The answer is not to trust nobody. A life without trust would be impossible. The goal is not suspicion. The goal is awareness. One of the simplest protections is slowing down important decisions. Manipulation often depends on urgency, a countdown, a threat, a demand for immediate action. When someone pressures you to decide quickly, ask yourself, who benefits if I don't have time to think? That question creates space between emotion and action. Another important skill is recognizing emotional pressure. Strong emotions are not automatically signs of manipulation. Love, fear, excitement, and guilt are normal human experiences. But when someone deliberately uses those emotions to control your choices, it deserves attention. Healthy relationships allow disagreement. Healthy relationships respect boundaries. Manipulative relationships often punish independence. It is also important to question your own thinking. Ask yourself, do I believe this because the evidence is strong, or because I want it to be true? Am I agreeing because I believe this, or because I feel pressured? Would I make the same decision if I had more time? These questions will not make you immune. Nobody is completely immune. Even experts can be influenced under the right circumstances. But awareness improves judgment. And that is the real lesson. Why do smart people fall for manipulation? Not because they are foolish. Not because manipulators possess secret powers. But because the human mind was built for connection. The same trust that allows friendships to exist can be exploited. The same empathy that makes us compassionate can be used against us. The same shortcuts that help us survive can sometimes lead us into mistakes. These are not flaws. They are the price of being human. Understanding manipulation is not about learning how to fear other people. It is about learning how your own mind works. Because the strongest defense against manipulation is not becoming suspicious of everyone. It is becoming more aware of yourself. When you understand your thoughts, emotions, biases, and decisions, you become harder to control without your knowledge. And perhaps the most powerful protection of all is this. The person who understands their own mind is far less likely to let someone else quietly take control of it. If you found this insight valuable, subscribe to Mind Archive and turn on notifications. New videos every Tuesday and Friday. Understand your mind. Understand people. Until next time, stay curious.